Hey guys, Keon Hushman here, back with another guitar amp plugin demo slash review, I guess. The last one we checked out was Bias Amp 2 from Positive Grid, and now we have got Fortin Nameless from Neural DSP. So this came out right about the same time that Joey Surge's Tones released the Misha Mansour Tone Forge, and there was a lot of scrutiny between these two plugins, and a lot of people would say one was better than the other and whatnot. And at the time I was caught up in the whole Tone Forge Misha Mansour plugin because, you know, Periphery is my favorite band and whatnot, so I was kind of riding that train. But now 6 months on, I'm kind of looking for a new kind of tone, and I keep seeing videos about Fortin Nameless and how good it is and how realistic it sounds, and basically, long story short, I just bit the bullet and bought it. Basically, this is one of the best guitar amp plugins I've ever tried, and I've tried a lot. So this is what you get when you open it up. Straight away, your standard things, just input, gate, the mode stereo mono, oversampling, which I'm going to switch to high because that's better sound quality, as well as a bunch of different presets that you can pick that come loaded within the plugin, as well as saving your own. Not bad for something that comes straight out of the box with no tweaking at all. Moving on to the pedals. So you get 3 pedals now. Before it only used to be the grind pedal, but now they've updated it and you get the hex drive as well as the Zool noise gate. The hex drive, to my ears anyway, it kind of sounds like it's meant to be more of a traditional overdrive, kind of like your 808 sound, and the grind is just for your absolute molten metal. Really good for 8 strings and 7 strings just to get that clarity and definition. You could crank the absolute shit out of that thing. It's a bit too much, but yeah, so if I was going for like a more of a 6-string kind of thing, I'll probably use the hex drive, but since we're using an Ibanez RGIF7 fan fret, we're going to be using the grind pedal. Moving on to the cab section, lots of different options here. You get 2 mics, and you can either have one mic or both on, and you can select all the different mics you want and put them in the positions you want, the distance away from the speaker, blend them in with each other, pan them. There's so many options you can do here, which is a little bit overwhelming maybe for a beginner or someone that has no idea what they're doing. So looking at this now, we've got an SM57 kind of mic and just a 184 condenser, and basically the 57 is meant to be more of like getting your high frequencies, really getting the clarity out of the guitar, and the condenser is kind of meant to get more of the body of the amp. So say if I wanted to have like a really kind of harsh high end, I'd push that all the way up, no distance from the speaker to the microphone, and so let's just turn this off for now just so you can hear. If I pushed it away, kind of gets warmer, more rounded. I kind of like to have it sitting there like right on the cap edge kinda. At the end of the day, this all just comes down to personal preference and the kind of tone you're going after. Low mids going on in that mic. Going back to the amp head, a lot of people say that this is the most accurate representation of a real life amp head to date through a guitar plugin, and I've got to agree with that. The way the knobs feel when you turn them, and just how everything reacts and how it reacts to your playing, it just seems second to none. For starters, you've got a push-pull-pull gain knob, which is pretty cool. When it's pushed in, kind of more in your face. When you pull off, kind of gives a more traditional kind of sound, a little bit quieter, but the presence knob is very, very powerful. If you crank it all the way, it can get really ice picky if you're not careful. Which is kind of why I like to keep it really rolled off. The bass knob is very cool because unlike most other guitar plugins, when you turn a bass knob, it either does absolutely nothing or just completely destroys your tone and just gets this overwhelming flub. When you turn it off all the way in this plugin, it does definitely cut out a lot of the bass, but it's not unbearable. But when you turn it up all the way, it doesn't really overpower everything. I kind of like to keep it somewhere around there. Just that bit of oomph when you hit everything. The middle and treble knob work really well together. Example being is if I was to create, say, a Meshuggah kind of tone, I'd crank, or overinstated Meshuggah kind of tone, I'd turn off the mids all the way and just absolutely crank the treble, and you get that really punchy kind of tone. A bit too much for my liking. I just kind of like to keep everything near noon. Doesn't really overpower anything much, gives you a nice even tone. The coolest part about this plugin is the two gain knobs and how they really affect the outcome of both your playing and the tone you're going for. So just to start off, I'm going to turn everything off. Very, very clean. Push this up a little bit. And then get to the nitty gritty. If you wanted a really thick and fat tone, I'd crank a gain 2 all the way up. Gets really, really gainy. Personally, that's not my kind of sound. I like to keep everything, while still sounding kind of big, I like to have it precise so you can hear every note perfectly, especially on a 7-string. Maybe I can even turn up a little bit more. If I turned it all the way off, it get really defined and almost too quiet. Apart from this, you can also choose between the high and low gain stages. Now that that's all over and done with, I'm going to show you guys how I use the plugin myself. So basically what we do first is use a compressor before it even hits the amp, just to kind of level everything out. Makes it nice and even. If you wanted to, you could use this overdrive, but I like using the hex drive. Just makes everything sound a little bit more oomphy. Going to the front of the amp, I haven't really changed much from the default. This is stayed in the middle and it is pushed in. Presence I roll off a little bit because I know that I'm going to be bumping up high frequencies when I'm mastering the tone later for a song or something. Bass I kind of like to put up a little bit just to give everything that bit more oomph when you're playing. Middle I kind of like to push a little bit because I am more biased towards that djenty kind of sound, that more modern middle type sound. Treble I don't really like to overpower the tone too much, otherwise it can get really stringy. Which is good if you want to like use a lot of 8-string stuff and really low tuned guitars to really bring out the note definition, but for now I'm just going to keep it right around there. And this is where I like to have the gain knobs. I like to have them not too high up because I don't want it to overpower everything and just get really woofy. Instead I like to roll it off a little bit so you get that note definition while still maintaining that big presence. I turn off the cablet emulation purely for the fact that I have my own cabs that I like to use. There's nothing wrong with this section. You could use it if you wanted to. It works fine. If anything, you'd have more options using this, but it's just that I'm used to the way my tone is and I like this cab, so I use it. It is the Misha Mix 08 from ML Sound Lab, and I have to use Cab Lab 3 to load it up because it is a fractal cab, and that's the only way you can use it. Otherwise, I would have just put it straight in the other plugin, but it is what it is. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Just the compressor and the amp and the cab. I wouldn't even have to use the cab if I could just load it into the plugin, but it is what it is. I don't know how to explain it. It's like every note you hit has conviction, and it's just like this oomph. I don't know how to explain it. It's just the way this amp reacts. It's so good. It's so pleasing to hear. And what this also allows me to do is ring out huge chords, and nothing's really overpowering anything. It's very crisp and pleasing to the ear. So yeah, that is Fortin Nameless, both in the box and both how I use it. I know you're probably wondering what it sounds like in a mix situation, which is why I've prepared a song which we will cut to now. And that's what it sounds like in a mix. Pretty good for a guitar plugin. Not too bad. Thank you guys for watching. If you like what you saw today, hit subscribe, like the video, comment, whatever you feel like. I also have an Instagram called @KeonHushmanLive, which I will leave somewhere around here that you guys can follow, which is basically just me playing guitar, playing songs, and having a good time. So yeah, again, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.